Welcome to News with a View, a fatcatproduction.com, hosted by this fat cat, John A. Costa. Today is October 5th, 2025, and this is either episode 139 or 140. I'm going to say 140, but I'm not certain on that. Today's topic to really go off with will be not our legal system. Our legal system is perfect in this country. No, I feel it's perfect. Could always use some tweaking, and it could always be improved. But what I'm talking about, judges and district attorneys. We're seeing far too many repeat offenders that should be locked in jail. Turnstile justice. So, the real crime being committed against most Americans today are that from our judges with the help of legislators and DAs being elected by the Soros group. You look at some of the highest crime areas of this country, and it's DAs and judges that were all on the Soros payroll. And when I say payroll, I mean contribution list. But if you look at the Soros plan and what these people all sit and go and meet with other Soros lawyers are given their marching orders. That makes them on their payroll. Now, this is not just a blue state problem. And I don't want it to be looked at as just, I'm beating up the Democrats. But it's 90% of the Democrats, judges and district attorneys that are saying that, well, we're letting these people go with cashless bond or no bail because our jails are just overpacked. And, it'd be inhumane to put these people in the system. So we let them go on supervised release. Well, the recidivism rate for injured, and this is New York, released on no bail in New York State varies. But data from 2023, and this is, you go on there and find it, shows that 44% rearrest rate and 24% felony rearrest rates over 2-year periods for those released without bail. And they say compared to higher rates in control groups. Yeah, they don't say what those control groups are. So, however, a separate 2024 New York Post article citing the same study focused on upstate New York, reporting that 66% rate for repeat violent felons released on no bail, with nearly half rearrested for new felonies, so they're committing more felonies. Therefore, and I say this, the rate depends on where you're looking at. If you're just going to take one little area, yeah, the rate's going to be tremendous. If you went to another area, it wouldn't be. Now, they choose upstate. What's the population spread? So if you go to Rochester or Syracuse or Utica or Troy or Albany, you'll see that those rates are very high. If you went to some county or town, you'd go, oh, it's a low rate. And it also depends on the individual's history and the type of charges. A study in 2024 on the New York State bail reform by the DCJ found that 2/3, 66% of violent offenders with prior records who were released under bail reform were rearrested within 2 years, with almost half rearrested for new felonies and a quarter for new violent felonies. This group was a specific subgroup of defendants subject to no bail laws who had recent prior arrests and were deemed the most concerning criminals. Concerning criminals. Substitute, and this is in their report, concerning to violent and dangerous. Now, judges can release people charged with violent crimes in New York State without bail, though the bail reform law generally requires bail for most violent offenses. But we've seen that the judges have not done that in some high-profile cases where people have been let out, and they just keep repeating and repeating and repeating these crimes. And these judges that are doing it are not called to task on it. And their excuse is, I'm just saying what the law states. No, the law states that you can do it, but it also requires you to be responsible and be reasonable. Releasing some of these people that have been arrested 20 and 30 times for violent acts. You don't think mugging is not a violent act? You don't think robbing is not a violent act? They've let rapists walk free. There are politicians that want to make judges responsible. And I don't know if that will work. I don't think legally, I don't think you can make that happen. But I think what can happen and should happen are the judges that have released violent repeat offenders. The judge who's doing that, it should be made immediately public information. And it is, but it's funny, if you go into AI, if you go into Google and you try to search, like, how many repeat offenders did one particular judge, oh, we don't have that information. That's not compiled data. But if you went in and asked how many times did Trump's call someone a loser, that would be there. That information is compiled and can be found off the internet with AI. Yet finding out who are people released, and they're saying, well, it's a privacy issue. No, it's not a privacy issue. You get arrested. That is a public, that's in the public domain. And why not have that information out there where a judge who says, this person was brought in front of me and charged with, beating this person up, and I mean, we caught him. They're beating the person up. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. Here's his picture. Here's the event. Here's everything. We got it. We got the guy. And I say, you know, Mr. Jones, you're going to show back up on Tuesday, right? Yeah, sure. Yeah, cut him loose. New York, there was a judge. Cut him loose, Bruce. So a judge can do that. And if they brought someone in under their, quote unquote, an upstanding citizen. And an upstanding citizen is just anyone that has not had a blush run-in with the law. And it's not a violent act. It's not, it's just not a violent act. Or if there's some question to it, then the judge can have the power to go, he owns a house, he has a business, he's been here for 30 years in the community, he boom, 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 boom. Yeah, we're pretty certain he's going to show back up. He has a paid attorney over here representing him. He's not going anywhere. And if you're really worried about that, you make a condition of ROR, released on your own recognizance, that you must surrender your passport, if you have a passport, to your attorney, who will then turn it into the court. And that's all. And if you need to travel, you have to come and ask permission from the court. If it elevates to that level. So judges can do that, and they should be able to do that. You know, in a he said, she said type of situation, and the police don't know, they're just acting on a complaint. We didn't see anything, but the complaint was made, and, then I can understand saying, hey, but if they brought that guy back because he had another complaint against him from someone else, well, then the judge might say, hey, there's a problem here. We're going to post bond, or, you're going to sit in jail till we figure this out. Because, we now have a second complaint. And really, bond is just so you show back up again. That's all. Doesn't buy you anything but your ability to go out and work and mount your defense. So you could say, well, shouldn't someone who is, anyone that's accused of a crime have that right? Yeah. You could have that right if you post bond. If it elevates to that level. If the judge is looking at your record and he doesn't look at you, he asks the DA, or ADA, hey, tell me what you know about this guy, because I don't know this guy. And they have, here it is, and we'll read it to you, on this date, he was found guilty of a crime. He has 2 outstanding court cases, for the same type of crime that has not been adjudicated, or he hasn't, the trial is upcoming, so, but, that has been his blush with us. And then we have information that he was arrested in California and here, and the judge might turn around and go, hey, no bail, your flight risk. Or I'll let you out there, you got to post, $10,000 bail. Now, a lot of places say a lot of places, not a lot of places, but certain states now have said no bail bondsman. Can't have bail bondsman. And it's a cashless bail. We're seeing that what's called FTA in the court language, that's failure to appear. So a judge lets you go, no bail. Mr. Costa, you will return to the court on this date, right? No problem with that? All right, we're going to see you here October 18th, 9 o'clock. It'll be posted on the wall. You come into the court, boom, boom. You and your lawyer. And we'll see what's going on from there. And, all right, defendant is released, ROR, blah, blah, blah. You agreed to come back. Yes, I will, boom, boom, boom. And then they don't. And at that point, when you don't show up for your court case, and then you get a warrant out for you for your arrest. And I know that from personal history. Went to court. The lawyer representing did not show up. I was sitting there. We were in court. It gets to the end, we're the last people in there, and the court, is there anything else on my thing? No, I'm not. Your Honor. I'm here. I don't know what happened to my lawyer. So the lawyer is the one that goes and tells the bailiff and anyone else, the other officers of the court, hey, I'm here, we're here, wait our turn, call the case, we're here. And so the judge turned around and said, no, you're here, and you should be here, and do you have any idea? And she goes, I know this attorney, yeah, okay, it happens, I get it, but, I don't want to be arrested. And she goes, well, you're lucky you raised your hand, because the warrant was going out. And you were here. I have no problem with it. I can't talk to you about the case without your lawyer here. Boom, boom, boom. I'll contact your lawyer. You contact, I'm sure you've been on the phone, and yeah, where is he? And we'll work out another date. And, I said, well, I got to come in from South Carolina to get here. All right, can you, it might not be the date that you want, but I'll be back. I got to work it out, and work it out with the attorney. We'll work it out. Thank you. Boom, boom, and, and it all worked out, and everything was happy, and it worked out. But when you don't show up, and this breakdown that I had asked on AI did not break down who on the failure to appear was a felon or a misdemeanor. And some of this stuff could be parking. I have 10 parking tickets. And some of these felonies could be for felony assault, felony theft. But you couldn't get those numbers. And, AI keeps telling, oh, we don't statistically take those numbers. Really? Really? I find it funny that of all the things, that you talk about AI being able to do, they couldn't figure out public court records of misdemeanors and felons who don't show up. It's almost like they don't want you to know. So, in Pennsylvania, a 2022 study, and this is again in a particular area, Philadelphia Bail Reform Initiative found that releasing defendants on their own recognizance was associated with a higher rearrest rate when compared to the higher control group. Now, in that case, the higher control group was people that posted bond. Because what happens if you post bond and you do something naughty and get caught again, they'll revoke the bond, bail, lock you up. So you try not to cross over that line while you have a pending litigation against you. You keep your nose clean. However, several factors prevent this finding in AI from being a reliable measure of bail reform's overall effectiveness. Now, in that study, the failure to appear was almost 20%. Now, again, this could be people caught for smoking pot, smoking in an area they're not supposed to be in. This could be for public drunkenness or something, which is not a violent crime, but is, of course, a crime, and so forth. Shoplifting, below a certain threshold level of dollars. So these people, even homelessness, or you caught, told you 3 times not to sleep on that piece of property over there. Now you're sleeping on it. We're getting you for trespass. And they don't show up because, they're homeless and they're somewhere else. So it didn't break down that to where they said, they had an actual tracking of it. But if you're going to use that number, you got to put it into all the numbers. So when you get 17 and 20%, it's a pretty high number. California. I just want to make sure we're still doing everything we're supposed to be doing here. A study just in one particular county, and this was Yolo County, found that individuals released on zero bail were substantially rearrested and had a rearrest rate, which I find 169% more than those who were released on bail. Now, I looked at that number. I said, "Oh, this can't be right," and I looked it up, and it was right. I used Grok. I used other, other than Google, to find that information, or on Yahoo, and go in and use their database. I do use them all. I look to make sure, because in that instance, and in a lot of instances, the information varies. And you could ask the same question. When I do this type of things, I copy and paste the question and just move it over to another source, and you get varying answers. So you have to be careful, and when you're using, unreliable data to draw a conclusion. But you could see that even if this was off by 20 or 30%, that means 15% out of the 19 don't show up for their court dates, which is huge. if they're violent criminals, or that and really works out to 78% in California over 18 months period of time were rearrested for crimes, compared to just 33 to 44% for those who posted bail. Now, and that's where I said, you see that number of 33 to 44%, and this is all from AI. So 33 to 40, that's almost a 15% or 20% or 30% difference. So when you start looking at these numbers, and I will err on the fact that they did show up, that this number for failure to appear is actually lower than what is being reported. But failure to appear is still failure to appear in no bail situation. Whereas failure to appear for people that had bail was much, much lower. Because you don't appear, that money's forfeited. And there's no getting that back. So you can't ask for it back, you don't get it back. And another California report, and it didn't say who did the report. And I was almost questioned on whether or not to use this, but it's there and you could see it. So people would go, oh, but John, there was another report that said California indicated that suspects released on zero bail were twice as likely to be rearrested for felonies and 3 times as likely to be rearrested for violent crimes than those who posted bail. All right? Because the information is not being coordinated and made available for really scrutiny, whereas they said, you know, that report said, and 3 times more likely. So 3 times more likely, so if they gave bail to 10 people, that's a lot of people that aren't going to show up, that were given no bail. There was no data for failure to appear. Couldn't find it. Illinois, there was a no cash bail, as the Pretrial Fairness Act eliminated it for all offenses in September of 2023. All offenses: murder, rape, child abuse, child sexual abuse. Instead of being held on inability to pay, judges now order pretrial detention only defendants accused of serious felonies who are determined to pose a present and real threat to the public safety or are flight risk. Who makes that decision? Now, the DA can make his recommendations. And the judge can turn around and go, I understand. Bill is $200. No bill is needed because this guy's such a good guy. And crimes that may result in pretrial detention without bail, include forcible felonies, rape, stalking or aggravated stalking, domestic battery, sex offenses, including public indecency, believe it or not, adultery, and fornication. And that is pre-trial detention. So no trial, just the accusation. And remember, when you go to, if the police make an accusation against you, a judge gets to look at that, and you get to say, no, that ain't true, Your Honor. And they said, well, you attacked this person on this date, and your lawyer's there and going, Your Honor, I can show proof right now that my client was in Europe at the time. And, they might be able to show an airline ticket, or, they won't take pictures or anything. Here I am in front of the Eiffel Tower. But they might be able to take airline tickets and then go, all right, hold on. Boom, boom. We're going to have to look at this a little bit deeper, because we don't know. The judge goes, I don't know. But they have a lawyer. They have some proof here that he wasn't there. We're going to, revisit this, in a week. Come back. And you bring all your proof. And the DA, the ADA, you get your stuff together, and we'll have another hearing. But in the meantime, you can't travel, you can't do this or something, but no cash bail. And you could do that. That happens all the time. So, and of course they're saying, look at the tissues all over me. The rate of people rearrested after being released on no bail varies significantly by jurisdiction. Well, yeah, that would make sense. A city of 3 million will definitely have more than a county of 100,000. So while some studies show higher rates for rearrest, while others show low rates, particularly when combined with supervision services. For instance, one study found a 78% recidivism rate of those released on bail, and I said that. And again, no bail is all right, if, you caught a 16-year-old girl shoplifting lipstick, and they just, did something really stupid. And you could say, yeah, you're going to be back here, right? You're going to have a public defender, or you're going to have a lawyer. And, we'll see you here, right? Your mom's over there. Hey, Mom, you're going to make sure she comes back here, right? Okay? No bail. Whatever justice you're going to get, more than bail could do. But if you go, this is the 15th time this person has been arrested. And you might say, all right. And there was never any bail, right? The ADA, what recommendation? Well, we'd like to see a $5,000 bail. Well, $5,000 is a little bit much, even though this person's been in the court 15 times. We're going to say $1,000. And Now, in a no bail situation, you might, I can't afford that. All right, we're going to release you, and that's what happens. That's what happens. And again, like I said, it's just not a blue state problem. And I have no issues with no cash bail or zero bail in some cases. People screw up, things happen, you make a mistake. The case is not clear cut here. You've never been in front of the court before. You're 42 years old. You've never been in front of the court before. All right. You have a house. You got a job. You have family here. You have an attachment here. You'll show up, right? And that's the way it should work. But you look where they have just released violent people with no jail time. Or someone that has 39 priors. Felonies. Served less than 100 days in jail for all of them. And those are days you're waiting in jail. You might be held 4 days before they could book you. And that counts. Unbelievable. And really, America, you must look at your judges. And again, I said this is not a red-blue type issue, but it does happen a lot more with Democratic district attorneys right now and Democratic judges. You got to say no. And judges that keep losing appeals, where they make a ruling, and then the judges are overruled in another court. You have 3 or 4 of those things in a year. Or, you have 20% of your cases overturned because, something was wrong. You got to be called into question on your fitness to be a judge. It is ridiculous, dangerous, heartbreaking for families that lose someone or they're injured or traumatized because a judge refused to do their job. And you could turn around and go, well, the judge's job is to be impartial and to do that. Yeah. Judge's job is also to make sure I'm safe and the public at large is safe. Releasing repeat offenders. No. 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 If Johnny's a bad boy, Johnny goes to jail. If Susie's a bad girl, Susie goes to jail. And that's the way that has to work. Consequences. With compassion. Someone screws up, something happens, but it's a non-violent in nature. All right? You're found guilty, you spend 2 days in jail, pay a fine. You now have a misdemeanor on your record. Next case, but you've never been here before, and I'm going to tell you right now, if you show up in front of a judge where you've had a misdemeanor and it's still on your record, you're going to have a very bad day. So, if you're going to commit a misdemeanor or a felony, may I suggest you do it in Kansas and not in New York. Pay the fine, good luck, boom, and out the door you go. I can get there with that. But robbing people and assaulting people, for being homeless and sleeping somewhere you weren't supposed to, or trespassing, and they go, aha, you went through the gate, aha, we're going to trespass you. All right. Find someplace else to sleep. You know, there's shelters, there's help for you out there, there's other places. You don't have to do that. And that's fine. You know, there's no reason to lock that person up, only other than get them off the street. But that's not housing him. You know, the idea, well, we locked him up, he's going to get a cot and 3 meals. Yeah, that's not the answer. That's not the answer, and I'm not saying that's the answer. But there are some crimes that are worthy of you being held accountable. And if you've done crimes in the past, yeah. Or you haven't shown up, and now you show up, we caught you. The only reason you're here is because we caught you, and you were returned back to our jurisdiction. Yeah, you're not getting out. Nope. No bail. Next. You want to have a bail hearing? We'll have a bail hearing. That judge is going to tell you no to. But you could have it. But in the meantime, he's staying with us. So. And that is what I think. That's 41 minutes on this. Now, I'm laughing at the Democrats, or the Bozos, who have the nerve to now point at the Republicans as, you know, being the ones who weren't cooperative. The truth is, folks, the Democrats signed off on the big, beautiful bill. And the big, beautiful bill had all those things in there. And now you got buyer's regret. And in your tantrum, you are going to be the reason why people don't get a paycheck, and why Voight and Trump will be able to do everything that they said they wanted to do. And yes, Stephen Miller and Russell Voight, all part of 2025. And this was all known, and we questioned them about it. And the president was like, well, I don't, hey, no, no. I'm not for 2025. And now this is, they're saying, well, we can do this, and this. And in reality, they can't do this, and this without the president giving his thumbs up or thumbs down. And you have moderates telling the president, slow down. And you have moderates on the Democrats telling Schumer and Jeffries, we told you this was going to happen. This wasn't the time for this fight. This budget had a 7-week lifespan where none of these healthcare issues came up in that lifespan. None of the food stamps and a lot of these other programs weren't truly affected. There were programs that were being affected, but the health care that they're talking about wasn't being affected. And they decided to make the fight now. Yeah. Lousy timing, fellas. Lousy timing. You should have waited till November and had the fight there, and then called Trump Grinch. The Grinch that stole Christmas from all these federal workers. Look, during the holiday, look at Scrooge. And now you're trying to paint the president as the bad guy here. The bad guys are you Democrats who signed the budget, who signed the big beautiful bill. So, you thought you were going to fight him on this after you've already agreed to it. In contract language, that's called getting a second bite of the apple. But negotiations had already ended, and that apple was turned into pie. Now you have to eat the pie and keep your mouth shut. And these budget extensions you were looking at to try to get in your foot in the door. And this is what's the problem is with just kicking the can down the road and waiting every 8 weeks for this. Trump wants a budget, and he wants it for the year. And he has said that. He wants meaningful control of federal expenses. Instead of working with the president, and I said this even before he gave his speech on January 20th. You guys should have been all out there. When I say you guys, Democratic leadership, and said, America voters have spoken. We still represent all Americans, not just Democrats, but Republicans, everyone in our districts and in our states. We represent. We absolutely promised to work with the president in meaningful changes that has the least impact on people while trying to rein in government spending. And Schumer just sort of said, and all these people said, I look forward to it. Because dialogue can get us there. The president made his case to the American people and won that case. We will work with the president. We're not going to kneel to the president, but we will meaningfully work with him and we will work with, we are not going to put roadblocks in front of him that don't need to be there. Trump would have called them in the office and said, I hope you really mean what you say, because this is what I want to do. You tell me why that's a bad thing to do. I got all these people telling me we can do it over here. You, at this meeting, must convince me otherwise. That's all. and they could have worked something out. The president originally wanted to cut 80%. 80%. And we said no. No, we can't go along with that. But we can give you 15%. Here, here, here. Offering buyouts, boom, boom, incentives to leave. Maybe we can get that up to 32%. And let's see how that works. Let's see how that works, Mr. President. And if we can't get your numbers, if we can't get the 15% by retiring or this or, then you can go in and start doing things, because that is your prerogative. We will not be happy about it, but we think if we work with you, we can get those numbers up to 32%. And the cost, you could show that, we take these people out now, no rehires unless it's absolutely necessary or deemed or whatever, that could happen too. We're saying 15%, but we think we can get it up higher by doing it this way. And there is a cost to you, yes, there is a cost. But that cost stretched out over the next 5 years or 4 years is a lot lower than if we fight and they stay. What say you, Mr. President? And that, it could have been done. Could have been done. And that's not taking a knee. That's protecting those other 73% of the people. So, the Democrats blew it on so many levels, on so many ways. They could have done this. How they could have worked with the president, and the president coming out, as a tough guy, hey, this is what I really wanted. And I'm willing to go here and with a promise that we can revisit it and you're not going to fight me and you're not going to do this. And, I got great plans for the economy, which is going to help Democrats, going to help Republicans, it's going to help us all. And we want to move forward. We don't want to move backwards. And I don't want to hit a brick wall when I don't need to hit a brick wall. You could put up a fence, just have an opening in it. I don't want to knock it down. I don't want to climb over it. There were so many ways to work it out, but the hate of the Democrats against Trump and Trump's distrust of the Democrats who screwed him in his first term, that would have been hard to do. It would have been very, very hard to do. But you don't know. You don't know what you don't know. And it could have happened. Instead, they handed Trump the opportunity to slash all this as he wants to. And he will slash. And there'll be tears. And they'll be crying. And you'll have people going, but Democrats, you had to have known this. You had to have known what he was going to do, because this is what he said he was going to do if you did that. What were you thinking? Well, he wouldn't talk to us. No. You wouldn't negotiate with him. He's not going to waste his time talking to you unless you're bringing him something worth negotiating, because at this point, and at that point, he doesn't have to negotiate with you. That was all there. In the meantime, all you guys were screaming about was Epstein. Epstein. Instead of budget. Let's fix some of this stuff. Epstein is going to stay dead. He's not coming out of the ground or ashes or wherever he is. I still think he's alive on some island somewhere. But whatever. The truth of the matter is the Democrats dropped the ball just so many times. You know, they're the 1965 Mets. So, all right. So, if you made it this far and you haven't subscribed to my channel, please do. I'm putting this out on Rumble, which is rumble.com. John Fatcat, JOHN FATKAT, and that's, rumble.com, at youtube.com, at, and on Facebook, you know how to find me on Facebook. I'm there. The real John A. Costa. Like it. I'm putting out little shorts, 3-minute shorts on whatever my topics are of the day. I'll have one going out on this in a little bit because my live feed takes 24 hours to hit the playlist. I don't know why. I don't know why that is. It never was that way, but it is that way now. So, but I will do an edited piece where I will put all the information, and you'll always find it either over my shoulder. Mostly down here is where I put please subscribe. And just a reminder, after Tuesday of this week, I'll just have some pre-programmed shows going up on schedule. That will just be commentary on stuff that I'm talking about or in the news up till Tuesday. And then the following Thursday, I'll be starting new programming. So, for reasons I wish not to discuss, I will be unavailable during that time. And I don't even think that if there was anything even major that I would be going out on any type of platform or anything. No, I wouldn't say it, but it would be, if I did, it would have to be through my cell phone, and it'd be difficult for me in the location to do what I would want to do. So, take my word. But if not, I'll try to. All right, we're coming up on the 1 hour mark now. That's all I wanted to do. Everyone, please donate to a charity if you can. Make sure that charity is bona fide. You go to the charity, don't have them come to you. Do not become a victim trying to help victims. Give to your local food banks. They always can use some extra stuff. Just can't be expired food. Say a prayer. Prayer does work no matter what Democrats tell you. And with that, I am going to say good night as I fade to black.